Ciao Bella, welcome to Bella Uncinetto. I'm Christina, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. If you're new, welcome in. If you're returning, welcome back. No matter how long you've been here, I always appreciate your time. I am doing a segment that I haven't done in a little while, but it's Travel with Bella, and we are going to the far west side of the island of Sicily to a town called Trapani. Now, I went for a long weekend, excuse me, with my daughter, and excuse me, it was just a drive from where I am in the Catania region to that side of the island. Now, I'd been to that side of the island before. I've shown you parts of it in um, a couple of other videos that I've done. Um, but this was this is going to be a series of videos for this area because we went to multiple places. But today I'm going to talk to you just about the town of Trapani, and I'm just going to show you some of the pictures that I took. So Trapani is a port city. It is right on the water, and we stayed in the port area. So there were a lot of places, obviously, to stay, but um, instead of staying inside like the historic part of the city, we stayed more towards the port area uh, because one, it was closer to the water, and my daughter wanted to see the water when she got up every day. And there was a beach area that we could potentially go to, which is why I picked the specific place that I picked. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, which we'll get to in a little bit. But all in all, we had a lovely time. We were there um, 3 full days and part of another day. So we were there for 4 nights, which um, was fine. The one thing about Trapani that I will say, there is not a lot of like old world feel to it. There are to some other places in Sicily for sure. Um, but Trapani was um, bombed during World War II. It is a port city, so there were some bombs dropped during World War II, and so some of the city has been rebuilt. So it definitely has like an older feel to it, but not old world feel, if that makes sense. So it doesn't feel like a medieval town. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of ancient things to explore. Not that there's not anything to explore, because it was very beautiful. So I am going to put some pictures up during the video, but there's a couple of things. On our first day there, we came across a street sign, um, Via Vita, right? Street, Life Street, right? Or, the Street of Life, which I thought was interesting to me. And then if you don't know, have an obsession with stairs that seem to lead to nowhere. And these were actually very pretty stairs. They were, they were very pretty stairs. Um, but it was interesting because even though there's balconies there, there's not anything to actually go to. Oh, now I'm blurry. It'll fix itself or it won't. Um, and then the first full day that we were there, we didn't really stay in Trapani. We went somewhere else, which I will talk about in another video. But there was one day where we wanted to go to the beach, and oh, excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. Bless me. So we wanted to go And the place that we were staying, the host, because we stayed at an Airbnb, and the host was like, absolutely, you just turn and 2 minutes walk, and there's a beach right there. Your daughter can play, it'll be wonderful. We got there, and it was pretty. I mean, don't get me wrong. Um, this was one of the pictures that I took. But what you don't see is over here, there's so much trash. There was so much trash. There was like a tire and a couple of other things. And I was like, this isn't a place where she can play. So I did message him and I was like, unfortunately, like it's not something that she can play in. She can't play in the sand. But um, anyway, it was a lovely town. But the day that we went to the beach, we were there maybe an hour, and then my daughter got stung by a jellyfish. And she's fine. Um, and she was fine within 2 hours. Um, I got some sand. I rubbed the sand on her arm to get the tentacles out. I bathed her arm in seawater. We put some like like hydrocortisone cream on it. And then when we got back to our room, I gave her some ibuprofen. I always take children's Tylenol and ibuprofen with me, like the chewable tablets, because I never know when something's going to happen. And I always have, like, if I don't have the chewable tablets, I'll take the liquid form. I just had the tablets already packed, so I took those. But normally I try to save those if we're going like on an airplane because the liquid is too big. They usually don't let you bring it. So I have the tablets for that. But anyway, um, so I gave her some ibuprofen, and when we got back to the room and she took a shower, I put some more cream on her arm, and she promptly went to sleep. Well, so we chilled for the rest of the morning, and then we went to we had an appointment that afternoon to do something which will then be another video, which we went to the salt flats in Trapani, and that was amazing. So that will be a separate video. But and while I'm talking, there will be pictures coming up here. Um, we had to eat. So I woke my daughter up and I said, sweetie, I said, we don't have anything here. I said, do you want some lunch? And we were pretty close to several places. And it was like 5 minute walk to the center of uh, the historical district. And because the amount of cruise ships that dock there is incredible. There was one day, and I wish I'd taken a picture of it, and I did not. There was one day, there were 3 lined up, and I was like, what the? And there were so many people. Thankfully, we were driving out of town that day, so it was like, good we left. But I was like, there's this place, and they have some pizzas. I can go get some, and that'll be fine. And she was like, okay, that sounds great, Mommy, thank you. And she promptly went back to sleep. So I was walking down, and I went to the place. It said it was open on my phone. It said open, and they were closed, which is not unusual in Sicily for the internet to say something is open and it's not. And it wasn't even reposo time. It wasn't even time for anything to be closed necessarily. But I was like, okay, so I was like, I'm just gonna keep walking. And there were lots of places that were open, but here lately, my daughter has gotten pickier about her food. So I was trying to find something because she wasn't feeling well. I was like, we're not gonna try anything new. We're just gonna go with comfort, what she enjoys, whatever. Well, I couldn't find anything, um, but I did find a place that had focaccia, and I was like, that will work, right? Focaccia will work. So, um, I asked, how long would it be? And he said, oh, 20, 30 minutes. And I said, okay, va bene. And I put in an order for 2 because they weren't very big. He said they were about the size of a plate. And I was like, okay, so if I get 2, then that'll be enough for us to have. And then maybe we'll have a leftover or something. So while while everything was being made, um, I paid, of course, before I left because I said, I'll be back. I'm just going to go outside. So I walked around and there were beautiful churches, and I walked in one and there was a sign that said you had to pay €1 for the restoration of the church. And I was like, €1, it's fine. So I I did that, and I walked around and I took some pictures. Um, but I did have a timer set on my phone so that I would know when to go back. Because I didn't want to leave her too terribly long. I know that she was asleep, and I did have a way to contact her in case something happened, but because she wasn't feeling well, I really didn't want to leave her too long. But it took me, of course, like 5-7 minutes to get to the place to get food, and then it took me another probably 10 minutes to find something else. So that's already 20 minutes, and then he said it was going to be 25 to 30 minutes to even get a different thing. Yeah, so it's almost an hour later, but um, I I did appreciate the time that I got to walk around and see things, because the only place I went into was the church and the restaurant. But I did walk around and see a couple of other things. And then there was another night we went for dinner, and it was a previous night we went for dinner. We came across a ceramics place, and there was an older gentleman and then an older lady. They were in two separate rooms. The lady was painting pieces of nativity scenes, and that whole room that she was in had pottery pieces of nativity scenes, and you could pick the different pieces to buy to go into your nativity scene. And then the gentleman, he was by the window where people walking along the street could see him, and he was painting cups, and he had some other little bowls that were sitting there that he had painted, and so they were ready to be fired, in the kiln. And my daughter was fascinated by those. So I did buy a couple of tiles that had names of places that we had either gone to or we were going to while we were there. Um, because there is someone who, he doesn't work at the school, but he works with the school. Um, he's an iron worker, and he's made this beautiful bench that sits in our front office, and a couple of other things. And I was going to see if he could make me some little essentially frames, so that I don't hang just the tile to the wall. I have it inside the metal frame. He may already even have some, and then I can just hang the thing to the wall, the metal piece. Um, but I thought that was a really interesting idea. So I did get those, and um, we we had breakfast at the same place every day. We found this one place, and again, my daughter is not a sweet kind of eater for breakfast. I mean, don't get me wrong, she likes her donuts, but she loves the sandwiches. Um, there's a specific kind of sandwich that she absolutely adores, and we could only find it in bars. A lot of restaurants, of course, they don't make the sandwich, but a lot of the bars will have them because they're just quick, and they have them all throughout the day. So we went there. We went there just one morning because we went to one place and we thought it was a bar, but it wasn't. It was a gelato shop that was open at 8:30 in the morning, and she got super excited because she thought she was getting gelato for breakfast, and I said, "No, ma'am." So we just kept walking. It was literally right down the street, and there was a bar, and we went in. And then the next morning I was like, "Okay, what do you want to do for breakfast?" And she was like, "I want to go back to that place." And I was like, "Okay." So we went back to that place, and then there was one morning, the morning we went to the beach. There was a little like pasticceria down the street, so like a pastry shop. And I said, instead of walking all the way down with our beach gear to the bar to have breakfast, why don't we eat here? And she was like, okay. And that turned into an ordeal because again, they said they opened, and I even went in and asked them when they opened. And I waited 45 minutes after they were supposed to be open. And when I walked in, nobody was there. The door was open, nobody was there. Um, and the breakfast made my stomach hurt, and it was a whole deal. And then she got stung by a jellyfish, and I was like, oh. But the evening was great. So I have tons of pictures that I've shown you of sunrises and sunsets and the water, and I didn't take a picture of a ton of buildings. There is an old fort there that you can't go into. It's all like walled off, and it's really there just mainly for decoration now. Nobody really uses it, but it's still there. It's across from the fire station, and two two of the tours that we went on, which will be separate videos, um, were we met at the fire station. So um, we were seeing a lot of people walking up to the fort and like trying to take a picture. But the problem is, if you're walking right up on it, it's a massive building. Like, it's really long. Well, you can't see my hands, but it's really long. And in order to get a picture of it, you either need to be across the street or in the middle of the street. There were so many people trying to stand in the middle of the street and take a picture. And I was like, just go to the other side. Because even from where I was standing, I could cut off all of the traffic and most of all of the car traffic and most of the foot traffic. So, I mean, I think maybe I got maybe one or two people in my picture because I just tilted my camera and got the whole building. Uh, and I mean, the place that we stayed, there were a couple of seafood restaurants nearby, and I desperately wanted to try them, but my daughter did not. So maybe another time. But um, all in all, we had an amazing time, and Trapani is an amazing place to go. There are other things that definitely I want to go back and see. Other things that I want to do when I go there, and it's also a really great base. So from there, and I'm going to tell you just a little bit about what's coming up so that you know. We went to the Igadi Islands, and then we went to Segesta, and then we went to Erice. So from Trapani, we the only time we had to get in the car was to go to Segesta, because Segesta is like 30 minutes away. Um, but it's a very interesting place to go, so it was worth the trip. And it prompted now more information for another place that I want to go, which we'll talk about in that video. But so you'll have at least 3 more videos coming up from this trip. But everywhere we went, everyone was kind and generous and helpful. Um, when the tour guide saw that my daughter, because they were trying to, talk to her, like, hey, smile, da da da, and she was very like, she was still kind of like, because she'd been stung earlier that day. And I told them, I was like, no, her arm is hurting. She got stung by a jellyfish. And they were all very like, oh, like, we've been there, we've been there. And so they were very conscientious of, um, her being in the sun and all of that. So whenever they parked and they found like a shady spot for us to get out of on the tour, they made sure that she was in the shade, because one of the things with the jellyfish sting is that you cannot be in the sun. You can't expose it to the sun. It will hurt a lot. Um, so it because I have been stung multiple times. Not on purpose. It was never on purpose, but um, throughout my life I've been stung multiple times, and there were a couple of times where the times that I stayed in the sun and just kept going with my day was much more lethargic for much longer. Um, But anyway, so we had an amazing time, and I can't wait to share more of it with you. I hope you enjoyed the pictures of the church, and there was a beautiful bell on top of one of the churches. It wasn't anything that we could go into, but it was. And then the ceramic shop was lovely. Um, the beaches were beautiful. There was a lot of seaweed because it's all starting to die as it gets colder, and it's starting to pile up. And I think that's what enticed the jellyfish forward for my daughter to get stung. But they did say that um, they clean that off twice a year, but they leave it for as long as possible because it helps. They said they said it helps stop the ocean from biting away the sand, from eating the beach. And I was like, oh, erosion, okay. um, but it was a very interesting way to say it, so I thought that was interesting. And then um, there are a lot of windmills everywhere, because of the salt flats, which again I'll get into in another video. Oh, so that's actually 4 videos, um, including this one, because I'm gonna do a separate one just on the salt flats. Um, but there were, and then driving there were these giant wind turbines, to collect the wind energy, which was interesting. But the windmills were for the salt flats. So they had them all over the place. And for the tonerias, the tuneries, the tuneries, the tuna fisheries, where they would harvest the tuna and do all of that. So, um, not a super long travel video. I don't have a ton to talk about because, like I said, we didn't really stay in Trapani too much. We used it kind of as our base and went here and there, but I did want to share with you some of the lovely things that we did see while we were there. And I hope that you join me on a couple more of these videos. So, as always, be well, be safe, and be the same change you wish to see in the world, everyone. I'm so tongue tied today. Ciao, Bella!